Yo, what is going on, guys? Fatal here, coming at you with a brand new Gears of War 4 informational video today. Today we're going to be covering some great info that just came out thanks to GameInformer regarding Gears of War 4's multiplayer. We've all been waiting for this kind of info, so this is extremely exciting for me and hopefully exciting for you guys as well. I will have a link in the description to this article for you guys to check out on your own leisure if you want. In the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and cover everything in this video and kind of give some of my input as well. So make sure you check the description for that link, guys. So no hesitation whatsoever, I want to get straight into the info and kind of talk about it with you guys. First thing I like seeing in this article is the fact that Coalition is acknowledging the multiplayer fan base. Yes, the campaign is great. Lots of people love the campaign. You know, some people I'm sure only play Gears for the campaign, but the vast majority definitely play multiplayer in my eyes. The multiplayer is what keeps the game alive and it keeps people playing it on a consistent basis, keeps it in, Twitter, on YouTube, all that great stuff. If there wasn't online, there wouldn't be nearly enough content to post for this game, so it's great that they acknowledge that. And another great thing that I like seeing in that first point right there is the fact that, Gears of War 1 was really campaign oriented. So now the fact that they've gone from 90% of the effort going into the campaign, 10% into the multiplayer, shifting off to 70% campaign and 30% multiplayer, it just goes to show that they're kind of catering more and more towards multiplayer, which is great because we love the campaign, but a campaign is just a campaign. The multiplayer is really where most of us lie when it comes to playing this game, and especially to keep the content of the game fluctuating on a consistent basis in social media and on YouTube and all that great stuff. And also, just wanted to point out something right there. If you look at the bottom of the paragraph, they'll say they started working on multiplayer maps on the first day when developing Gears of War 4, so that is awesome. The maps are probably going to be great, and I'm looking forward to that very much. So, moving on to points 2 through 5, I'm going to go ahead and skip on to number 3. We have the mention of Horde mode. Game Informer did not get any information from Coalition regarding Horde mode, but I think it's safe to assume, considering Gears of War 2 and Gears of War 3 had Horde mode. Judgment, we all know that doesn't count. It did have Overrun, but Judgment is more than likely considered the Halo Reach of the Gears of War franchise, so I think it's safe to assume that we will have a new Horde mode for Gears of War 4. Up next at number 4, we have the multiplayer beta, which is starting this spring. Now, a lot of people are thinking the beta is going to be coming out sooner than probably what it is. We just had OSOC on Gears of War Ultimate Edition, and I know a lot of people played that, but to me, I honestly think that the beta will be coming out next month, mainly because, Coalition is giving out all this info and everything, and, we're kind of getting more and more familiarized with what's going to be in Gears of War 4, what to expect out of it. There's a ton of things that are coming out in Gears of War 4, so I feel like we're still going to get more of an influx of information before the beta will drop. But I'll go ahead and just read that point really quick. During the beta, players will be able to play as 5 of the campaign's protagonists. The first 3 are the 3 main playable heroes. JD, which is Marcus's son, for those of you guys who do not know, and is the main character in Gears of War 4. Kate, Delmont, and the 4th is Kate's mom and the leader of the Outsiders, a woman named Reyna. The 5th is Kate's uncle Oscar, who is an ex-Gear soldier and expert survivalist. You guys can go ahead and look those characters up. There's a lot of information out there on the web on them. I did not do a video on it, so I'm sure you can find an article out there somewhere, and I might post one in the description for you guys to check out if you want to look at it. Moving on to number 5, multiplayer is still humans versus monsters. So another kind of Judgment subliminal right there. Judgment was Cog versus Cog. Locust weren't really there. So it's nice that Gears of War 4 is going to stay true to the roots and keep it Cog versus Locust in multiplayer, because that is what we know. That's how it's always been, and Judgment changed that, but it was a bad change in my eyes, so I'm happy they're sticking with Cog versus Locust. I do, however, want to mention now that the quote-unquote Locust are referred to as the Swarm, which are the new enemies. So it's going to be Cog versus Swarm, and it would appear by that bottom paragraph right there that we're going to have 3 factions. It's going to be the Outsiders and the Cog, as well as the Swarm enemies. So that's cool. It's still going to be split into 2 sides, so it's still going to be quote-unquote Cog versus Locust, which we're all used to saying, which is the only reason I'm saying that. There is a mention of another potential monster faction, but I just don't really see it likely. I think it's still just going to be Swarm and or Locust, if anything. So yeah, we're going to go ahead and move on to the next set of points right here. At number 6, we have the mentioning of the knives, which were introduced last week. So now every faction is going to have their own knife, and particularly what I remember reading is the fact that you can now vault kick, which is basically the Gears of War 3 mantle kick. It's just, I guess, a different variation or something like that. But you can use the vault kick and then knife your enemies and kill them. Moving on to number 7, we have the team is making a big push for the esports market this time around. I think it's great that the game stays true to its competitive roots, and it is important, but I also kind of laugh at this a little bit because I feel like Gears of War has always made a push to be part of like esports and MLG and ESL, all that competitive stuff. You know, I've never really been too keen on it, and I've never been involved in it. I like playing multiplayer. Most people know me as a montager. I record game clips and shit, but I think it's great that the game stays true to its roots and it stays a competitive game. But I also think it's even better that the fact that casual fans are still welcome. My only issue is the fact that these casual fans will come on to the multiplayer and they'll get teabagged by these ESL kids, and then they'll just dip and never play the game again. And that's why the franchise doesn't really grow. But at the same time, most of us who are so used to the game, if there was any substantial change to accommodate to those casual fans, we would all end up getting pissed off, or we wouldn't like the change. The Retro Lancer, for example, I feel like that was for the casual fans, and look where that got us. But I'm going to continue on before I get on a rant. So moving on to point number 9, don't expect a lot of wind. Wind is a big part of the story campaign, but at this time the team isn't planning on incorporating wind flares into the game's multiplayer maps. Kind of disappointed by that. I thought that would be a pretty, you know, cool thing to do, maybe with certain specific maps, not every map. But anyway, moving on to number 10, the Coalition is getting some help. So Coalition recruited this company, Splash Damage. It's a London-based developer. They worked on Gears of War Ultimate Edition with the redesigning of the multiplayer maps and, you know, the subscripts and everything so that it would work on Xbox One, as well as accompanying it into 60 FPS, which is point number 11. Multiplayer will run at 60 FPS and will have its own dedicated servers. It is only fitting, especially considering how Call of Duty, Battlefield, all of these great multiplayer games out there that have huge fan bases run at 60 FPS, so I think this is kind of crucial. And it will keep Gears of War 4 up in the ranks with all the other bigger games out there these days. Finally, at number 12, balance is important to the Coalition. This is an interesting part, so I'm going to read it word for word. The studio has introduced a new takedown system that allows players to initiate a series of close combat melee takedowns. In single player, these might become fairly easy to pull off, but the Coalition has worked hard to ensure that in multiplayer, players on the receiving end of these have several ways to counter the attacks and escape before a knife ends up in their brain pan. And I'm very thankful for the second part of that paragraph, because it just goes to show that people probably won't be spamming it, and it'll be something that occurs in multiplayer, but it won't be spammed nearly as much as like the mantle kick was in Gears of War 3 or like the Retro was. So that is the article, guys. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about all this information. Let me know if you guys are excited for Gears of War 4 multiplayer beta. Thank you to everyone who checked out this video, and I will talk to you guys later. Peace.